Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dave's Faves. And today I want to talk to you about the Schumann Symphonies, all of them as a set. I can talk about certain extraordinary individual performances as they arise later on in the series, possibly, but I wanted to get the sort of ideal set, which you know what it is. I mean, I'm talking about something that I've discussed before, but like I've said many times, if we don't repeat or mention these things more than once, then they're just going to be forgotten about because there's just too much stuff out there. Number one. And number two, you never know how someone's going to find it following this series or some other series. So Robert Schumann, his 4 symphonies, and in this case, the Overture, Scherzo, and Finale, which is an absolutely marvelous piece that is very, very little known. And it's just first-class Schumann. It's this version with Wolfgang Sawallisch and the and the Staatskapelle Dresden. Yes, the Staatskapelle Dresden on Warner, EMI. Well, this is Warner, so it's fairly recent. You know, it probably still exists somewhere. This has long been regarded as one of the great sets of the Schumann symphonies, and there are really quite a few. There's a lot of them. I mean, there's Dochnani, there's Schulte, there's Muti, there's Barenboim, there's Zinman, there's Bernstein, there's no shortage of first-class Schumann symphony cycles, and many conductors did them more than once. But I like this performance for a lot of reasons. First, Sawallisch doesn't get a lot of credit as being the best in anything, and with good reason. He was not the most fascinating conductor. He was not the brightest bulb in the chandelier as an interpreter. He could be somewhat prosaic and somewhat plodding, and I know that, that may sound harsh, but it's just the reality. I mean, his discography speaks for itself. He did not have a great deal of interest in off-the-beaten-path repertoire. My tongue is getting stuck. I don't know why. He was very much a German Kapellmeister, a Strauss-Wagner guy. I mean, his Beethoven cycle was boring. It sounds terrible to start by criticizing him, but it's only to tell you how splendid this is and how happy I am that he was able to really pull himself together and give us this stunning collection of Schumann's 4 symphonies plus the Overture, Scherzo, and Finale. Now, granted, a lot of the credit goes to the orchestra. The Staatskapelle Dresden, which someday I will pronounce correctly, well, it was largely hidden from us by the Iron Curtain for much of the 20th century. Recordings did ooze out now and again, including that amazing Richard Strauss set with Rudolf Kempe, also on Warner. They are a great orchestra. I've always thought that they were lots more interesting than the Berlin Philharmonic was under Karajan, which was the great Western German orchestra. Well, this was the great Eastern German orchestra, and it had a very different corporate sound from the Berlin Philharmonic under Karajan. The sound of the Staatskapelle Dresden was much closer to something like the Czech Philharmonic. That is absolutely top to bottom transparent, with a lean and somewhat wiry string sound, bright piercing trumpets, a brass sound that was unhomogenized, really characterful woodwinds, and just enormous transparency, which is such an advantage in Schumann because, as we all know, Schumann was not the best orchestrator on the block. It doesn't mean he was terrible, but his orchestrations tended to be very thick. I mean, when you listen to these symphonies, even when you don't play with the orchestration, as everybody does in some way, at least in terms of balances and dynamics, if not actual rescoring. The problem with Schumann is that he was a terrible conductor. And so in his later symphonies, from the, really the Rhenish is the one, and the revised version of the 4th, he had a tendency to make every single woodwind entrance foolproof by doubling them with the violins. So the result is a certain monochrome texture. He always wrote brilliant music for the horns, for example. He loved the horns. It's not that the music isn't colorful. It is, and it can be, but it's not that way without a little help from the conductor. You don't have to reorchestrate it the way Mahler did, or George Sell often did, or a lot of other conductors do. But you do need to be very careful with balances, and it really helps if you have an orchestra whose natural sound has great transparency. And that's the Staatskapelle at Dresden. There, I said it. Yay. And to that, what Sawallisch brings to the table is just tremendous energy. I mean, my goodness, he treats this music with the incredible excitement and freshness and verve. And so when you add that to the orchestra's natural clarity, you get performances that just wipe the slate clean. I mean, it sounds like they were composed yesterday. So while there are many other Schumann cycles by fabulous artists, which are equally good in their way, I think this is an excellent reference edition. You start with these to get to know what the music is. And then when you know, you can listen to all kinds of other people and compare and make direct comparisons. Not to say that this is the only way to do it or this is necessarily the best or anything like that, but to say that here's my reference and here are the differences and you can enjoy them all the more as a result. I mean, that's how I view this cycle. It's really stunning. So, Sawallisch, the Staatskapelle Dresden on Warner in the Schumann Symphonies and the Overture, Scherzo, and Finale. Keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.